Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life, a podcast where you'll gain insights from relationship experts and entrepreneurial couples who have moved through conflict and into a better life. Crack the clarity code and create deeper connections beyond the messiness of relationships. Here's your host, Judy K. Herman.
Hello, and welcome back to Better Relationships, Better Life. I'm your host, Judy K. Herman. On today's episode, our guest is Chloe Ballatore, a relationship and communication expert who helps people change their lives and relationships by balancing their yin and yang energies. Her approach is so well researched, rooted in ancient and Jungian tradition. Let's tune in for a perspective that empowers you to improve your relationships. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Judy Herman, and welcome to the Better Relationships, Better Life podcast. I am so excited about my friend and colleague, Chloe Ballatore. She is an expert in relationships and communication. She is a graduate of Princeton University and the Want Institute. She teaches men, women, and couples how to balance their yin and yang energies through conscious communication. I am all for that, Chloe. I am so glad that you joined me. Thanks for being here. Why don't you tell folks about yourself and what do you do and how you help?
Thank you, Judy. So the tools that I teach are really, like you said, all based on feminine and masculine energy, also known as yin and yang, right? And these are the energies that kind of govern the universe that we live in, right? And we see that echoed throughout philosophy, throughout science. We have the studies done by Roger Sperry on the brain in the 1980s, for which he won a Nobel Prize, which definitively proved that we humans have a right side of the brain, which is nonlinear, more spiritual, more artistic, right? Yeah. And a left side of the brain, which is linear and logical, which is more the world of thoughts, okay? And then we, like, the philosophy of yin and yang is thousands of years old, right? Which also resonates with that. And then early in the 20th century, we have Carl Jung's work, which he defines consciousness as the balance between feminine and masculine energies, right? We have the concept of the anima and the anima being the feminine and the animus being the masculine. And what Carl Jung explained is that we're all both, right? Yeah. We're all both feminine and masculine.
Yeah. And how to integrate that. And especially when it comes to relationships. I'm very interested in how you got to be in this field. And actually, as a relationship expert, do you refer yourself as a relationship coach? What would be like your title or your credentials when it comes to working with couples or individuals about relationships?
So I call myself a relationship and communication expert.
Okay.
I avoid the words therapy. I avoid the words coach.
They hold a lot of meaning for a lot of people.
Right. The connotations. There's a lot of connotations. And for me, even though my mentor, Pat Allen, is traditionally a traditional therapist in a sense, she's very unusual. Right. So for me, when I was starting on my journey, I'd been to a lot of therapy, and most therapy is that emotive therapy where you talk a lot about yourself and your feelings, and the therapist doesn't say much, and then the session's over, right?
Yeah.
And I just wasn't I wasn't seeing progress. It's nice. It's enjoyable in the moment sometimes, right? To be heard and to be seen. We all need these things. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't seeing changes in my life. And so I
and that's what we need. We need a good balance, because it is very healing to be heard, to be understood. Mm-hmm. But there does need to be movement and change to happen, and transformation is what it's all about. So talk, Chloe, about maybe that point in your life. I think I heard, because I'd done some already a little bit of research on you and listened to some of your teachings. So I know you've got a book out, but you've had this point of there. Oh, you've got 2 books out. Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
do.
Thank you for putting those out there. How to Live and New Ways of Being. Okay. So the New Ways of Being, is that a newer book then?
Yeah, that's the one that I just finished.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Are these how-to books? How, yeah.
Yeah, they're very much, the first book especially is like the basics of my work, and it's full of tools, a little bit about my story, childhood scripting, and the basics of androgynous semantic realignment. And then the second book is something that I just don't think is focused on enough, which is called New Ways of Being, and the subtitle is The Pain of Change. Because I think one thing that people don't realize, and I certainly didn't myself until I went through it, is when you make a change, even if it's for the better, pain is involved, right? The brain rewires itself on pain. And there's a great book about that called The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Deutsch. And it's focused on stroke victims, but you really can extrapolate from it and take a lot of that wisdom into just, any kind of change that you're making in your life. It doesn't have to be recovering from a stroke. But I think people get a big rush when they first make a change for the good. And then the pain sets in, and then they want to stop and not do it anymore. And that's like pulling the arrow out, right? And what we want to do is push the arrow all the way through, because it's way more painful to just keep pulling it out and putting it back in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very fascinating. So in my book, which is it's like part memoir, and then also has some psychological wisdom and spiritual insight, but I do use this acronym, which I think you and I are on the same page when it comes to, you're going to experience pain anyway. Pain is inevitable. It's a human thing that you cannot avoid going through life with, but I do use this acronym of breathing fresh air. And then the A being awareness, and the I is intentionality, but the R is the risk of growth. So that's what I'm hearing. Like, okay, we can choose either the pain of this, either the sameness or the, not moving in life, or we can, take the pain of of going from one level to another and growing,
Yes,
and making
yes,
some people
very
miserable,
well said.
you know, and owning our own authenticity, right? And so that's kind of what I'm hearing a little bit from you. Is
Yeah,
that,
I mean, I call it, you know, pain means one of two things: either that change needs to take place or change is taking place. And so this book is really meant to help people navigate through that pain of change so that they don't, you know, get cold feet and pull out
yeah,
and make it worse.
Yeah, that's interesting. I really want to zone in to your journey and even your personal journey. I'm a therapist, but I do ask nosy questions. And then I'm getting into what you call relationship authenticity coaching. I don't know. Those are two buzzwords, right? But I'm taking kind of a dual role here, and because I do have a coaching program that's really remarkable, but I do see so many gaps as far as therapy goes. I see that in the mental health system and all these systems that we've kind of identified, and some have had good experiences and some not. But I want to go into your life a little bit and what led you to study and to be helping people on this level.
Good question, because I was doing something else before. But what happened to me is, well, I was an abused child. And though I had been in therapy my whole life, like I said, and so had my parents, by the way, nothing really ever changed. Okay. So I kind of lost faith in that a little bit. And then I think after I had my second child, so I was married about 10 years at that point, I started to really hit bottom. I had very severe postpartum syndrome, anxiety, depression, insomnia. And I was just really, really unhappy. And I found myself unable to find a way out, unable to make decisions that would fulfill me or help me, or take me out of my pain. And I didn't even really understand what the source of my pain was necessarily.
Let me ask Chloe, how did that affect your marriage?
Well, my marriage, I've always been in love with my husband. My husband is like the guy for me. But I was finding that I was, and this is in my book, so it's not like a huge secret, but what I was finding is I have certain coping mechanisms, right, from childhood. We all develop coping mechanisms from childhood. And those are meant to keep on good terms with the people who own the refrigerator, you know, empower ourselves in a very limited situation. But when we grow up, those methods don't work. One of the things I had traditionally done to make myself feel good about myself is flirt incessantly with men. Okay. Just get the largest number of men to like me. And so I found after 10 years of marriage, I was kind of slipping into that again. And I was like pushing it a lot, you know, where I was flirting a lot. I mean, you're a therapist, you know, once you get married, the flirtation doesn't end. That's just a whole new world of married flirting. So, you know, my husband knew and he noticed, we talked about it, but I found myself doing things that I didn't really feel good about and that didn't really seem consistent with what I wanted, but I didn't understand why I was doing those things. And it also wasn't bringing me happiness, and nothing was really bringing me happiness. I saw a huge change in my neighbor over about a 3-year period. And so I asked her, what's happening here? Like, and I mean, she went from being a single mom, that she was a teen mom, she was struggling financially all the time I've known her. I've lived in the same place for 20 years. So, and so has she. And so I was like, all of a sudden she was like getting married to the most gorgeous, kindest Italian man. Her career went through the roof. She started making $1 million a year. This was somebody who couldn't pay $800 rent. Okay.
Wow.
So, I was like, I want some of that. I want that. And she was like, well, I'm starting this women's group with Dr. Pat Allen. Why don't you come? And I was hesitant because of my prior experiences with therapy. She's like, it's not like normal therapy, just come.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I was going to ask or what I was going to talk about because my malaise felt very generalized. And I went, and the first night I got in the chair. And Dr. Pat nailed me in 5 minutes. Her diagnosis.
Let me hold this because I think there's a lot packed in your story, even with this, Chloe, because what really stands out to me, that obviously was a turning point for you, but your neighbor was already on this journey, which this neighbor, like, and you noticed, right? You noticed. And then look at this impact right now. You've got 2 books out and you've got these clients you're working with, you're on podcasts and other things, and you're making a difference and your life has changed, right? That's like huge. And so I guess the point I wanted to make is when you work on your own stuff, because this neighbor had such an impact on you, what an impact you have on other people. Like when you let go of trying to fix your spouse, you let go of trying to fix your kid, or anybody else that's close to you in your life, and you start investing in your own life and living well and growing, you don't know who you're impacting, right? Your own neighbor that might be right.
Yeah, and it's so,
I think that's amazing. That's like really cool. Yeah.
It's so profound really what you're saying, because in general, people spend a ton of time trying to control other people and very little time working on their own self-mastery.
Yeah.
Right? So that's part of my work, is really redirecting people.
Yeah.
Okay, they have every right to do what they're going to do, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm all about raising that level of awareness, because whatever mess is going on in the relationship is being co-created. And so raising one's level of awareness. So here's my next question for you. With the impact that you are making in people's lives and the change that you have gone through, and yeah, your husband's a great guy and all that, but he had to have some kind of change in his life, I would imagine, because you had this dance going on. If you're flirting with other guys, but there's some kind of dance going on in that marriage that had, it's not just you. In other words, I like to tell people, you know what, it's not just you. Yes, it is very dysfunctional, maladaptive to take your patterns that you absolutely needed as children in order to survive your childhood. You survived your childhood. You needed that because you were helpless and you were vulnerable and did not have power, but they are so maladaptive and they actually do harm to your adult relationships. So, and I talk a lot, I use the analogy of dance and the space in between. So because people are wondering, I'm wondering, how did that change with your growth? Because it wasn't just you. How did that change the marriage?
Right. Well, you do your work and you hope to God they do theirs.
Yeah, there you go.
You
There's so many that you do your work and then they don't do theirs, right?
That happens. But you need to have that information because the worst thing that you can be is unteachable. So if the person isn't really willing to change and isn't open to new ways of being, people who are willing to change and people who are unwilling to change.
Still takes two to be married, doesn't it?
It definitely does. And so I had to go through a moment, which lasted a little while, of thinking he may not, it's possible he may not rise to the occasion and then I'll be alone, but I made that commitment to myself that even if he can't do his work, I'm going to do my work and I'm going to stand by myself. That means I'm going to cherish my own feelings. I'm going to respect my own thoughts and I'm going to take actions based on that, come hell or high water. Right. And that's the winning statement, is being willing to do what's right when you don't know the outcome.
Going back to the pain that you feel, you can either feel the pain doing the right thing or feel the pain of not doing the right thing.
Exactly.
But I would imagine you standing up for yourself, and that took a whole lot of courage, right? And especially if you've been groomed a certain way or, going through certain things. But you do, it's kind of what Brene Brown talks about when she's talking about in studied, vulnerability, and has packaged it so well for the rest of us in all of her New York Times bestselling books and TED Talks.
Right. She's good at that.
It's the same thing, isn't it? It's choosing to live, to grow and honor yourself, but it does change that relationship dance.
Yes. And that's part of this work is learning to put yourself first and what that means.
Yeah. But no, so tell me about your husband. I mean, when did he get on board and how, obviously I'm assuming you have a great marriage.
Yeah, we do. Now I've been married 20 years. Of course, we've had our moments.
You have a before this and an after this, right? You got,
yes.
So, and I will tell you this. I think it's so important for people to know there's stages in marriage, right? And there's levels of challenges, maybe more so in certain stages than others. I think raising kids, raising teenagers, especially when you're in that stage of life in your marriage, like
that's where I'm at now. Yeah.
Well, tell me, how in the world is that going? Because
my husband and I are always looking at each other going, parenting. It's very important to us. He was heavily neglected as a child. He basically raised himself, and I was an abused child. So both of us are really invested in not carrying through those patterns and in teaching our children the things that we weren't taught and caring for our children, with these tools.
It's like you're changing your family tree, right?
Oh, exactly. Totally. We've broken probably centuries of patterning.
Yeah. We're not talking about just your family of origin, his family, but we're talking, generations past. A lot of people don't understand how they have problems in their marriage or their relationship. And they think, well, is it me? Is it me? No, it's a whole lot bigger than you.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That shouldn't be underestimated when people do make these changes and do my program and start using these tools. You are probably breaking centuries of ancestral negative scripting.
Yeah,
it's like a big
not just
deal.
Families, not just family of origins, but also culture. Also
culture and
politics, everything
are not easy to break.
Yeah.
If you've read Alice Miller, the repetition compulsion is the strongest compulsion that we have as humans. So we are literally doomed to repeat everything that we don't bring a ton of awareness to. That's and you can bring some awareness to things and still not fully get it, right? So it's always like peeling the layers of an onion. And so I explain this to people a lot because people are very loyal to their training. And this loyalty will supersede love when there's no awareness to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, isn't there is it statistics like 95% of the things we think about are actually thoughts from 5 years old or before?
Yeah. Do you
but they're
know
repetitious.
Robert Sapolsky's work and his book, Behave?
I'm going to be writing notes down and watch this again, simply because there's a lot of books you're exposing me to right now. I've read the books I've read, but you're exposing me to some new ones, and so, or different ones of thinking. So
Good.
This is great, Chloe. Keep going, girl.
Well, that's what his most recent book. I mean, he has a great book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and it's all about like the stress response. And then his second book that came out just a few years ago is called Behave, and it's all about like, you think you have free will, but actually here's all the factors that are going into your decision making.
Yeah.
So it really refers to what you just said.
Yeah. And I think just, getting out of our boxes, having various experiences, I think, are so very helpful. And even traveling, internationally. And I know COVID has kept us all like in our homes and all of that stuff, but we do. It's like it's this lifelong journey in our lives, isn't it, to increase our awareness. So there's things that you and I, we don't even know what we're not aware of until maybe another stage of life or whatever.
Blind to your own blindness.
Yeah. I know. And for me, I don't know if it was for you, but I think for most women that have had babies, like becoming a mother is like, whoa, I didn't know I could love so much. Where did all this love come from? And it just really opened. I think that happens with your roles in life. I am in the stage of life where I've got these beautiful, wonderful 5 grandchildren. And it's like, that's heaven. This is nirvana here.
That's what I've heard. Being a grandparent is so nice.
It is. It's beautiful. And, but there's so many things now that I know at the stage of life that I'm at that it would be impossible developmentally to even have a clue about. And yet, see, we have these aha moments, and then we judge ourselves so very harshly, don't we? We have this committee in our head, we judge ourselves, and why didn't we this or that? But having grace for oneself, in your journey that you've been through, I think is so very important.
Yeah, it's that self-compassion.
Absolutely. And the more self-compassion we can have for ourselves, then the more that it can be given to others without feeling like we're being depleted, right?
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
That's why, nobody can do the personal work other than you, and doing you as a full-time job, right?
It is. It is.
Hello, this is Judy K. Herman. If you're enjoying this podcast and are wondering how you can use what you've learned in your own relationship, you can go to my website, judycounselor.com, and take my relationship stress quiz to see if you can identify stress points in your relationship that you may be able to address with what we've learned from this great interview. I would love to support you. You've heard what my guests have to say. Now it's time for you to take action. Visit judycounselor.com today. Let's stay in touch.
Compassion is a very important piece. It is. And it's important as you're going through your life and your changes. I mean, easier said than done is to not to shit on yourself for the mistakes you made in the past. This is how we learn as humans. We have to make mistakes. We have to make a ton of mistakes to learn.
And that is a human journey, isn't it? I mean, if we didn't make the mistakes, we wouldn't learn, right? And if we didn't have regrets, we couldn't pull out even life lessons from it. We don't want to live in that regret, but we want to be free and have this wisdom and insight and honoring ourselves and honoring the other person.
And that's the balance. And that is, again, exactly what I work with, is the balance between those two energies, right? The ability to take action, and then also the ability to surrender. Right.
Let me ask you, because I know from what I've watched of you and your teaching, and you really do help people like finding the love of their life and that kind of thing. How does the your framework in helping others, how does it affect parenting? Let's say, your relationship with your kids and all of that.
Yeah, it's it's so good. And I'm glad you brought that up, because while I do focus a ton on relationships, that's mainly because that's what people want. But this work travels through work situations, through parenting, through friendships. So with parenting, sometimes it's interesting because sometimes I'll meet resistance from some of my clients because they just want to tell their kids something and not hear what their kids have to say, right? And this is the demagogy that a lot of us have been raised with.
Yeah. Listen to what I say and do the right thing or blah, blah, blah. Right. And they're not really like, even they're trying to fix their kid, rather than really hearing that they're a separate human being than you are, right?
Right. And children by nature, by the setup of our society, are like immigrants in our homes, right? So they're always in this kind of outsider zone. And so there's certain things that you can let children control just to give them that sense of autonomy so that they don't feel like, they're just a victim of circumstance. So we try what the whole idea is behind all this work is making I statements.
Yes.
And inquiring about what the other person has to say, right?
Yes.
This is negotiating with love. And then if there is a disagreement, you let the person know of the prize and the price tag. So
by the way, I think that's a great thing that I heard some of that. I thought, wow, the price and the price tag. That's like cool. I'm gonna hang on to that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's key.
The price and the price tag thing.
And everything we do in life has a price and a price tag. Really. I mean, so I'm just going to be articulating that for my child, essentially.
Yeah.
So again, it's not about controlling them. It's more about expressing things so that they can make the decision that's aligned with what they want. So I'll give you an example from my own life. Yesterday, my son is supposed to fold the laundry. Okay. That's his chore. He doesn't want to do it. He puts up a lot of fight. It's, a big drag. And who wants to force a kid to do it?
Yeah.
So yesterday I said, okay, fine. Don't fold the laundry. I'm not going to be folding your clothes then. And he said, fine. So I just left them in a pile and he just scooped them up and that was it.
Problem solved, right?
Problem solved.
He can find his socks and underwear in the midst of all of that.
Right. Now, right. And of course, going down the road this morning, he had a problem with his clothes, right? He couldn't find stuff. Things he thought were clean weren't clean. So he's already suffering the price tag of that behavior. And so the idea is that he will come to that realization that, oh, maybe disengaging with the laundry isn't like my best move.
Yeah, they've got to feel it themselves, don't they? And you're really doing your child a wonderful favor by really put the monkey on their back, so to speak. Like the more you get
his future wife. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. So, wow, this is really good. Very good. But so I know, let me ask you this. What would you say to folks that are listening? Maybe if there's one piece of one thing that they could be pondering or thinking about or even doing that could really help them in their messy relationships.
Okay, this is my main rubric. One of my main things. You only know how much you love yourself or anyone else by the commitments you're willing to make and keep. Okay.
Yeah. Say that again. That's worthy of saying again. Say that one more time.
You only know how much you love yourself or anyone else by the commitments you're willing to make and keep. And when you run all your relationships through that rubric, life gets a lot easier.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. So, but even the work that's done doesn't guarantee peace and flow, right? We do the work. We raise our level of awareness. We take those risks of growth. And stuff comes because life happens, right?
Right. And that's the nature, like I said, of this planet. We got pain and we got pleasure. Every catastrophe has a silver lining. Every success has, a negative side too.
Yeah.
So that's just what we have here. A lot of times I'll get people who are like, but why does it have to be that way? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know why there's day and night. I don't know why there's a sperm in the egg, but I know that creates a magnetic vortex in which life is born.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And then too, I get a lot of, well, why do I have to do all the work? Why doesn't my spouse do?
Well, to that I will say, women mostly, or feminine energy people, carry that right brain spiritual energy of the relationship. So in my experience, women often have to lead on this kind of psychological spiritual work. Okay. Let's just hope he follows the lead. When I have a woman, I know I can fix the family usually. You know, like sometimes I work with couples, but sometimes I just work with only the woman. If I have the man, usually I'm just working on the man.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have the ambition that I will fix his whole family. And again, I'm guiding him to do it, or her to do it.
Yeah, to make an impact, right?
Right. But to make a really big impact, usually it's the women.
You know, that is really neat. I think that's really neat because women do hold power in ways that they don't even realize that they do.
Yes. Yes. And I've had the privilege, you know, to learn from my mentor, Pat Allen, like at her feet. And she's the one who created Androgynous Semantic Realignment. And I've spent time with her, and to see her out in the world doing these tools is like next level. It is so inspiring.
Wow.
You know, yeah. I've been in at Kinko's with her where there's like, you know, everything's self-serve in there basically. And she's doing the tools so great that she's got the guys working there running around helping her with the self-serve, which is like, she's 80 years old. Like, how are you doing this? Like, she's, you know what I mean? Like, she's manipulating them into it, which is okay because she's respectful doing it.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. It's kind of, that I guess manipulation kind of gets a bad rap, doesn't it?
It does.
But really, even newborn babies, when they're first born, I mean, they cry and they do manipulate us because we need to feed them because it's part of their survival.
Right. So, and I mean, it's what I say is it's okay for women or feminine energy people to manipulate masculine energy people as long as they do it with respect. And it's okay for masculine energy people or men to control feminine energy people or women as long as they cherish their feelings.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. Thank you so much, Chloe. I've just really enjoyed learning from you and having this conversation because there's so many things that you've studied and these folks that I'm not as familiar with, or, you know, with all of these energies. Of course, it makes so much sense, and this layer of understanding can be so very helpful.
Helpful. And I'm all about results.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing because we are very pragmatic people, aren't we? We need to see change. Yeah, we need to see change for sure, and to live in alignment. So what does the future hold for you at this point? You've got your second book written and it's out there in the world and you're making a difference. So what does the future hold?
So as you mentioned at the beginning, I see men, I see women, I see couples. I also see families. I also just started a teen group to help teens with their dating and their relationship stuff, because teens are really lost, right?
Yeah.
And I led into this really from helping my own kids. And then on top of that, I'm offering a package for the first time so that people can kind of learn about this work and get a chance to know me and to also learn from each other. As I said at the beginning, I started in a group and I believe very much in groups, and that's a little bit more of an economical way to get into my work.
Yeah.
So if people want to check out that, I also do weekly audio only events on the Quilt app.
I'm not familiar with the Quilt app. I've got to get myself familiar with the Quilt app.
Yeah.
I'll
it's
do
good.
that.
It's a wellness focused app. You should get on there. I think
I will.
Like it.
I'm going to check into it. And by the way, all of these resources that have been mentioned today, just for listeners, is in the show notes. So you'll be able to get these resources, and that's good because you've exposed me to a lot of things that I didn't know about, Chloe, and that's really cool. So where can our listeners, can't speak well, where can our listeners learn more about you? And if they want to, just learn from you, get into some of these apps and hear you, and so where do they find you?
I'm also on IG. I put a lot of collateral on Instagram. So that's at Chloe's_consciousness_training. That's my program that I teach.
Okay.
And then my website, chloesconsciousnesstraining.squarespace.com.
All
And
right.
both of those, you can reach out to me. I'm really responsive. One of the things that I do offer with my work that is baked into the price is that I'm pretty much available for my clients 24/7. So,
Oh,
I mean, to the
thank
best
you.
of my ability.
Yeah.
So if you're having a crisis, you get to reach it. If you're my client, you get to reach out. We get to troubleshoot it in the moment. Everything's not an hour appointment. So it's like, I have one of my regular clients, she reaches out to me like 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here, just so that she can get through the challenges in her day. Because what happens if we don't do it that way is that things start to build up.
And
then
that's a beautiful model too, that it does deviate from, the hour-long, counseling session, so to speak.
Yes.
So that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Chloe. It's been a delight to know your work and to talk with you and to provide such value. Thank you so much. You keep up the great work you're doing.
Oh, thank you. You're so welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye. I was so inspired by Chloe's wisdom and insights. She gives us such powerful and practical ways our feminine and masculine energies affect our relationships. Now, you don't want to miss our next episode. Get ready to laugh as I interview Matt and Linda Lutz about their fun-loving secrets for a vibrantly long-lasting marriage. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review in the streaming app of your choice. See you next time.